like a piece of shit.
Oh, a lazy
I
one.
watch movies like 4 a.m. and that type of stuff.
Yeah.
All right, I'm good if you're good.
All right.
All right, guys, welcome back. We are back again. Julien surprised me this week with saying he was not going to tell me what we're going to talk about today.
It's a vast subject.
It has me worried that either you're going to drag me into intellectual deep water, and I'm never going to make it back.
No.
Which is better than the other thing that I thought was that I am going to be publicly shamed for an hour on camera.
No, it's going to be that. You're going to. I'm going to blow your mind, and then everybody's going to be. Is going to watch how this happens.
Wonderful.
Exactly. So I'm going to go into one of my musings. So basically, the podcast is going to be simple. I'm going to do what I usually do to him. You guys get to see it. So we're going to put everything together. I'm just going to muse about it. So understand that this is something that I've been made aware of like 2-3 days ago. It's a book that was written, which is The Demon is a Machine, by Paul Davis. I'm going to explain what the book is about, but even him is missing a few of the stuff that I've been working on. But so if you put everything together, we are one step closer to the answer to Schrödinger, what is life? In a way that opens even more rabbit holes, but it also shows how right I was with a number of the stuff. Like that guy is on the physics and math, so he doesn't see the nervous system. He doesn't see even Carl Friston or everything. If you add what he's talking about, which is through computer science, to what we've been talking about, you'll see what I mean. All right, so I have to go through. So the demon in the machine, basically.
We did speak about this briefly the last.
So
week,
I'm going to talk about it again.
So if you have not seen last week's,
it's okay.
There's a good chunk
I'll
there.
do it.
We'll
Right. So
now.
It's a book by Paul Davis. Look it up, which is about information. And it's non-information like what is the weather today. We're talking information from a quantum mechanical level.
Almost like from a conceptual standpoint.
Yes, a bit. Like, okay, so to talk about that, you would have to go see, Google Leonard Susskind, right? And the black hole war, it talks about entropy when information is. He has many, many lectures about that. Or look, Leonard Susskind, what is entropy? Look, time as a one-way street. Look up Leonard Susskind and he's going to talk to you about what information is. And more importantly, the world as a hologram. Remember I told you about all about that stuff, right? The world of the hologram, that like the information of a space is contained on the outside of the space, not in the inside. So that the information of a balloon looks like all the information is on the surface of the balloon, and not all the information necessary to understand what the balloon is, or what the Earth is or the ground is on the surface, not on the inside.
Okay.
So it looks like everything is basically a projection of the information on the surface, explain what's in it.
And this is from a quantum mechanical
level. Like we know that's right. That's the world is a hologram. That's the study of black hole that is telling us that.
Okay.
By the way, the surface being the juncture between the inside and the outside, does that remind you something? It's the wall of the cell in a Bayesian probability mathematics stuff. That's the Bayesian blanket, which is the between outside and inside where all the probability happens. It's the same shit. So that means the cell acts like a black hole.
So then everything is. So then what's interesting is then that becomes large and small then, as far as that carries through everything.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So it's that. So what happens? Yeah, exactly. So it means everywhere. So the key to this is information in the bit sense. Right?
Okay.
So, but that goes one step further into what. So now we're going into Akira in a way, because now what you're saying is what a cell does with the Bayesian blanket, which is the surface, does exactly what everything does. It's that surface that describes what's inside. Just like with the Bayesian blanket, that is the level between the inside and the outside and how they connect with each other. There's a deeper stuff there. So if you want to go into, we live in a computer simulation, we can from there. But I know that's your favorite one. Yeah, exactly. Yes. Right, but there's a coding that is happening through information that happens to life only and not outside, which brings the question to where the black hole is. Yeah, there's a problem about that with black holes. Like
how so?
Well, I'll go into it, but is it really not alive then? Anyway, it goes too far. But so everything is about information on a quantum mechanical level. So again, Leonard Susskind, we go there. So now you move that to Schrödinger, what is life, right? So Schrödinger wrote the book, What is Life, in 1944. And the problem that there was on the quantum mechanical level, right, of what is life versus non-life. So I need to go over that again because that leads into the book by Paul Davies.
Yeah.
So the idea is there's a problem. Most of quantum mechanics studies non-life. This.
Yeah.
Right. So what is non-life? I can't say death because death is an action. It's when you go from life to non-life, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So non-life obeys the laws of entropy, which is something that is in the state here will go toward more disorder. Things get diluted, things go to shit. Decomposition, everything. So how do you know something is alive versus non-alive? For example, a drop of ink in a bucket of water is not alive. How do you know? Because it disperses. It starts as itself and then it just goes to shit everywhere in the bucket, disperses, right? Life acts the other way. Life would try to get the ink, the drop of ink, to recompose itself. It would fight against entropy.
Okay.
Right? That's the difference between life and non-life. That's what Carl Friston was explaining. So that's what the book goes into, is like, look, at a quantum mechanical level, life do not obey the same rules as everything, as non-life. Non-life, we know second law of thermodynamics, entropy always decreases, has to go make, like it's the deepest law of the universe, is like it has to go toward disorder. And yet, life fights that. So how come life fights the most profound law of physics of the universe, right? So it starts to hint at certain things, right? And for example, Schrödinger in it explains that the human body acts in a certain way. So he started to surmise that, and I talk about that in the last podcast, because I thought the book was one of those greatest revelations I've ever had from reading a book. It's one of those moments in your life when you go ding, right? And I was like, oh my God, how come this book has not changed the world? I was wrong. It has. In the sense of, in the book, Schrödinger starts to go at the human body and saying, look, it's at 37 degrees centigrade. It's very hot. It should be decomposing tissue or everything way faster than it does. So that means that, and then the way the body is created, he surmised that there had to be some kind of encoding of the information of the human body, right? That had to be encoded deeply within the cell of the human beings that would allow them to grow into a full-grown human being. And then because it is so hot, it would have to be a structure that do not decompose fast. So that would have to be the most solid structure that exists is a crystal. So it could not be a crystal because a crystal is a dead pattern. It never changes. Yeah. It had to be a structure that could change. So we call that an atypical crystal. And then reading that, I was like, duh, yeah, it's the DNA. Mm-hmm. DNA is the encoding of all information of all cells in the human body, and it actually has the form of an atypical crystal. I was like, all right. So, yes, you didn't reach out too far for that one. Until I realized, reading Paul Davies' book, because he reminded me of something that I forgot, is that DNA was discovered 10 years after Schrödinger wrote the book. Not before.
Not before.
10 years after, I was like, right. So
that was something that he had basically touched on, knowing only of
quantum mechanics.
Of like
there's
biology. A function that's being served.
Exactly. It has to be that.
I don't know what's doing it.
But there's something is serving it, and it has to have that form.
Yeah.
So why did it change the world? Because the two guys that discovered DNA 10 plus years later said that they discovered DNA looking into a place that was described by Schrödinger. By reading, they started to go for DNA after reading Schrödinger's book, saying, oh my God. And they looked exactly where he told them to look. And that's where they found DNA.
Yeah.
So he did change everything with that book. And by the way, how did he find about DNA? Through logical evidence.
Yeah.
Not through empirical. That came after.
Which is, it's funny, it's like you had mentioned last week about how you had always thought that he didn't create any massive ripples with the thing that he did.
I was wrong.
Yeah.
I was totally wrong. Yeah, in my mind I was like, because I didn't realize that DNA came after, not before the book. I forgot how we only have DNA for like 50, 60 years. I forgot. Yeah, I was so wrong on this. Yeah. He created the biggest ripple of them.
Yeah.
Of them all, almost. All right. Yeah, I was totally wrong on that one.
That's crazy.
I know. And so Schrödinger, but he's asking a few questions in that book, and you can tell he does not want to answer them. Like, I would have to go into this, but you can tell he was terrified of touching certain subjects. Biology and physics together, when you start to go there, it sounds awfully... People have tried, and they always gotten blasted because he gets too close to religion. It's just not a subject you can breach.
Doesn't it seem like if you were to combine biology and physics together, just generally speaking. That does seem to then, like if there is some sort of cohesive philosophy that covers both of those things, that has to cover, at least as far as what we know as humans now, everything, right?
And that's what we're going to talk about, and that's what they're doing. Yeah. But at the time, he didn't want to touch it. Yeah, people don't understand the world at the time. It's World War II, and they're about to bomb the shit of Hiroshima and Nagasaki and all that stuff, and the physics is changing, right? And Niels Bohr and all the stuff. There's a very big pressure for him not to go too far. Right, so he stops there. But he did ask a few questions. For example, so we know life fights entropy. So he was like, but the entropy is what is a measure of disorder. They're like, all right, so what's the measure of order? What's the life force? Right, there has to be the equivalent of entropy, right, on the other side, and they call that neg-entropy, negative entropy. And he goes into the book a little bit. Negative entropy since then have been a subject which I talked about a lot. And so now we move on to Carl Friston, who adapted the same concept. Instead of taking it from the quantum mechanical, so from the physics perspective, he went at it from the math perspective. And his stuff was, if we look at a cell, so every cell does that, right? If you look at a cell, there's the inside of the cell that targets what happens on the outside of the cell that targets what happens on the inside, and the what do you call that? The cell around, like not the skin of the cell, but the
membrane.
The cell, right? That is basically the buffer between the two, right? Yeah. And so everything from inside going outside, outside going inside happens to touch on that, on that membrane, on whatever, the shell, whatever you want to call it, because it's not just for a bacteria, it's for everything, any cell, any bacteria, anything is like that, right? You have a lot like the world is a hologram. Same idea, right? So the information is on the outside and it's in targets inside and the outside. So he moves on like that, right? And he goes at it from mathematics, from probability mathematics, and he shows that life fights entropy, fights disorder, create order through basically, so how did they prove it? Because he obeys the same laws as the same stuff as the Bayesian model, which is a mathematic probability stuff. I can go into that one, but that gets very technical and more complicated. Like Friston is a lot better than I am obviously at explaining all this. So just Google Carl Friston and you'll go into it. The idea is, like the drop of ink tries to disperse, life tries to regroup it, and then disperse, regroup, like a breathing, in and out, in and out, in and out. So that's what happens on the membrane, right? You see that in and out, like outside is basically non-life coming, trying to disperse it, and the cell's job is to resist that. Yeah. And they see that happens on. We can see that action happening through what is called a Bayesian model, which is a probability stuff. So on a mathematical level, he could prove that how life fights non-life, how what is called negative entropy fights entropy. So that's the work of Carl Friston, and then from there he started to show that it applies to everything in the human body, and went into the nervous stem, the brain, and all that stuff. Right? Okay. So that's where Carl Friston. And here comes Paul Davies into all this, who it's a field of science that doesn't even have a name, right? Because they're starting to understand that negative entropy, really what it is information. Information, the same information that Leonard Susskind talks about, right? So he studied it through the field of computer science, because that is the only field that looks at information from a bit perspective, right? And the laws of entropy, which is expressed through heat, you see that in computers. In order to erase stuff, your computer gets hot. That's entropy leaving the machine, because you can't erase information. It requires energy. Information cannot be erased. So even when you erase those bits on your computer, it cannot be erased. Nothing is erased. It has to be transformed. Or converted. So it's converted into entropy, which is heat. And heat being a measure of entropy. So you basically go from order, which is information, into out. And so through computer science, they're starting to understand that the key to all this is information. That's the key to life. So the key to non-life is entropy, the key to life is information. And then he starts to go into the computer science part. All right, so now you take that and it becomes very interesting, because remember what Carl Friston said about the purpose of life. The purpose of life is to minimize surprises. All right, how do you minimize surprise? It has to just be experience, right? Right, so what happens is you gain knowledge. True, You gain information.
Yeah.
By gaining information, you minimize surprise, which allows you to minimize disorder. So order is knowledge.
Which is exactly, when you talk about going out and, your body has a certain prediction about how things are going to go, how to feel. What does it matter confirming or disconfirming that prediction? It's still
knowledge.
Information. Yeah.
You gain knowledge, you gain information.
Yeah.
By gaining information, you minimize surprises. So by gaining information, you minimize non-life, entropy, death.
Yeah.
So you fight death by gaining knowledge.
Yeah.
So learning is a point of life again. So that validates everything that I
sense.
was saying. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right. So all right. So now you go one step further. You look at emotions.
Okay.
Right. What are emotions? Remember emotional balance? Right.
It's basically just a ramping up of the intensity or the pace
learning rate.
of that.
Exactly,
pace,
of
yeah.
the learning rate. So now let's imagine life as a computer. Right,
Okay.
so human body as a computer. You have to understand this is not a computer that exists. Computers are nothing compared to us. Even Alpha Zero, it can beat us at chess, yes, but it's nothing compared to
Yeah.
the stuff that we can do.
Can't
A
beat you at
bacteria.
chess and also order a cheeseburger from McDonald's.
Exactly, and yeah, but bacteria is far stronger than Alpha Zero on a number of things that it can do. Even bacteria are whiz at math.
Yeah.
That's what the Carl Friston was proving, basically. Right. Anyway, so you look at emotional balance and the learning rate. All right. So let's say I'm going to use a computer to explain how the human body works, but you understand that we are computers to the trillion on the strength level,
Yeah.
right? So
I think before we go into this too, it's important to point out, like we said with Alpha Zero, is most of these, when people think of like an AI or
Yeah.
a learning computer, is that they are actually so specialized.
Exactly.
Like
That's the problem.
when people think the Skynet fear, where the machines
not
are
even
going to
close.
get consciousness.
Not even
guys,
close.
they can't walk down the street. They can't make a peanut butter
can't do
jelly
shit.
sandwich. They can't do anything.
Outside of one
that thing
task.
can do the shit out of chess, and it still took however many million games to beat a person.
Yeah.
And so that's
No,
that's
plus
impressive in
it's
that
chess.
space.
The problem is that doesn't explain what is the point of chess. Because a human can tell you the point is strategy, the point is learning, the point he's not learning from chess,
And
he's
the
just
way-
learning chess.
And exactly, learning chess, not learning from it.
From chess.
And not being any better at anything outside of chess.
Getting better at chess will not make him better at anything.
Yeah.
Whereas us as human beings, learning from chess will make you better at war.
And I'm going to guess that there is
We're far superior.
some sort of a experiential, what's the word I'm looking for? Just advantage, I guess, to say learning a thing like chess as a person and winning and all of those things. That is more to a person than a machine who is just executing.
Because the machine is learning chess, is learning to beat you at chess, whereas a human being is learning about life. So we are far stronger. But I need to be able to put it in simple terms, so I need a computer, right?
Yep.
So a computer has a learning rate, right? It has also a memory, because that's the issue, is memory is finite. Right?
Yes.
Because anytime you get more memory, right, you start to find entropy. Entropy can't get anywhere, so it has to be expanded somewhere, right? And so anyway, there's a finite amount of space for you to store information,
Yeah.
right? So that's why you need a dial on the learning rate, because otherwise you will learn everything, but you can't, right? Because it's only a finite level. So this is where emotions comes in. That means that the role of emotion is to be able to crank the learning rate, so whenever you need to learn more or less, right? So that becomes very important. So that means also that emotions and actions have nothing to do one with another. We assume that emotion leads us to action, but no, all it does is basically telling you whether you will learn from that action or not.
That makes sense.
And how much you need to learn from that action or not. But actually nothing to do with action. It is a representation of what the action will do to you. So you're afraid of a situation, you know nothing about the situation. So that means you can do regardless of how you feel. You can be scared to go into a lifting, and it can be a great lifting session. You can be feeling awesome about lifting session and yet have a very poor one. One, because one has nothing to do with the other.
Yeah.
Emotions and actions are not linked together.
In that
it is
capacity,
only linked to how much you will learn from it.
Yeah, so it's better to almost just rank them by, rank that emotional experience as far as its intensity than anything
No, but
else.
it goes past that. It means, I think this is where the difference between us and the monkeys, between us and everything else is we have a choice. This is where we can tell a difference between, there's a choice that we have on how we feel about something and whether we do it or not, whereas animals don't. The choice, or at least we're better at the choice. They do, obviously, but like a dog gets aggressive, he bites the hand that feeds him, whether you like it or not. a human has a better capacity to split emotion and action.
Yeah.
And that's what the strength is. Because if from a computer science, that's very important. I'm going to get into that one. But so you have the learning rate, right? That is activated through emotion and stuff like that. All right. So, but learning rate means you incorporate more information, but it's finite. So you're going to have to dump the rest.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So you have to dump the other part of emotion. How is dumping done? It was a very interesting. I remember AlphaZero, that. Right.
Yep.
So AlphaZero, his strength compared to Stockfish, the problem with Stockfish is you kept memorizing, but eventually you run out of space.
Yeah.
So the way out of that computer science shows us is like it's not memorization that makes you better. It's getting the lesson, forgetting the experience.
Gotcha.
Right. So you change the coding.
Understand.
That's what AlphaZero did.
Yeah.
It changed his coding at every single game, becoming better at every game, but never remembering the game itself.
Yeah. Which meant every time there was nothing saying, God, I shouldn't make this one move because this is one of 10 moves that I did that cost me something last time. It's like, no. Just play.
Well, so if I don't create, if I keep the lesson but forget the experience, that means that I do not fill up the memory card. So that means I can increase the learning rate.
Yeah.
See where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
So you can increase the memory rate by dumping the memory card every time. All right, so how do we dump the information?
I have no idea.
How about sleep?
That's actually funny that you mentioned that because so there was a thing I had read recently about how one of the main functions they believe of, I believe it was the Rem phase of sleep, is basically converting things into memory. Right. Or prioritizing the order with which things are done.
So assimilating information into knowledge. So maybe that's different with information. It sits there. Knowledge is when it's like AlphaZero, once integrated into the coding, into your own structure.
Yeah.
So an experience that is strong enough will change who you are. You don't have to remember it anymore. You're already somebody different.
Yeah.
So by doing that, you can wipe out the information and increase
because you're just carrying that with you, not as information,
AlphaZero
it's just
style.
in you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, if you go like Stockfish, you get slower and slower and slower.
Yeah.
Right. So now you get slower and slower and slower. What does that mean from an emotion perspective? Now we reverse the stuff. Remember that emotional valence, the harshness of the feeling or certain feelings are linked to how much you can learn from that. Yeah. All right. So now go the other way.
So
you
if
can't
the learning
learn
rate
anymore.
is very slow, then there's going to be almost no feeling.
So or certain feelings or whatever feeling allows you to lower the learning rate.
Okay.
Right. So we know that certain feelings basically that are very harsh, like fear or stuff like that, increase the learning rate.
Yeah.
If the bank is getting full, either I need to decrease my capacity for fear for surviving, or I'm gonna fucking blow a casket.
Yeah.
So heat is gonna get to a level that my whole brain is gonna start melting down. Right. So all right, so now you can start to see how the capacity to dump, just on a physiological level, the capacity to sleep correctly will increase your capacity for strong emotions.
Yeah. Is that a good thing?
From a learning perspective,
From a learning perspective.
Yeah, it is.
I always think
that's what we're going to get into today.
If I think of something like strong emotions, though.
But exactly, we put a negative.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know why? Because your memory is already full of shit. So what happens if I put a strong emotion? It's more information coming in on a memory that is almost full.
That's true. Yeah.
It could literally kill you because it could figuratively melt your brain.
Yeah.
So you refuse the strong emotion.
Yeah.
And what happens when you refuse a strong emotion? It becomes negative in that aspect. It becomes destructive. So why are strong emotions destructive? Because your memory card is full. Cannot accept it.
Yeah.
That's why it's destructive.
Because you should be able to have a strong emotional response and walk away from it going, all right. You know what I mean? In almost anything, positive, negative.
What happens at the tournament in Rus?
Yeah.
Because I accepted the information, but I had to wipe out stuff first.
Yeah. Interesting.
Very.
Yeah.
So you could see how
so it's actually almost important that you have to go there, kind of.
You have to, otherwise there is no learning.
Yeah. Because otherwise you're never able to just
But if
unpack
there's
it
no
all. You're
learning,
just dragging
you'll-
it with you until it's
there's no
full.
learning, you can make good predictions, you'll die.
Yeah.
That is stagnation in death. Maybe not at an individual level, but as a
Yeah.
species, certainly. Imagine you could see an entire culture starting to fall.
Yeah.
Not accepting strong emotion. Look at the American culture right now, always getting pissed and everything, but the second there's a real strong emotion, everybody's like, whoa, 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 whoa.
Yeah.
Why? Because everybody knows everything.
Yeah.
So that's a problem also. The internet is feeding that, where you have too much information. So what happens when you have too much information? You back away from the strong, harsh emotions. Harsh emotions means you go like, ooh, that I'm offended. I don't like to feel like this.
That's actually in the same way things roll with things like identity politics in the States. where
Exactly.
You have somebody
Where
who's
people
like,
are-
listen, I
everybody's
don't need to
offended.
think about issues
I know.
because
And everything offends me.
all I am is mad at everything over here, and I like everything over
And you
here,
know
but
why
that's it.
everything offends me? Because any new information is painful.
Yeah.
Why? Because my memory bank is full.
Yeah.
That's literally what he's telling you, that if you don't dump the memory card, any new information will literally be painful to you. So that's why you're offended all the time.
Yeah.
So he shows how deeply this goes on a cultural level and on us as humans if we don't understand the importance of information and how to deal with it.
Yeah. So can we go into the sleep thing a bit
Yeah,
then?
okay. So for example, a good night's sleep would allow you to integrate a lesson, but forget the experience, which means you have less memory in the card. Therefore, you would be able to increase your learning rate, which means you would be allowing yourself to feel stronger emotion in a positive way. You will be able to absorb more information. That means you can crank the learning rate. That means your emotion can be higher. Why do depressed people say they don't feel anything? They don't learn anything.
Yeah.
They can't fucking move because their computer is at 10 gigabytes max.
Yeah.
Enfin, no, it's 1 terabyte.
Whatever
10
it is,
sorry,
yeah.
that's from the 80s right there. Is at 1 terabyte, and he can't process anything anymore because he's so fucking full.
So it just exists at that point.
It just exists, but so there's no strong emotion. It's like they tell you, I don't feel anything. They can't move anymore because literally they can. What moving means what? Doing action means what? Means more information in, and they cannot take it. That's why everything is painful.
I think that's why also in those cases people feel, in a depressed state, people tend to feel, I would describe that as a very less alive feeling.
But because that's the key, is they don't feel anything. They don't feel.
Yeah.
That's the problem. They don't feel because they cannot absorb any more information.
Yeah.
That's the key. Their learning rate is at 0.
So does this need to be gone at from a point of like, I mean, obviously sleep is important. That's one thing.
Right. So now there's
do
more
you-
important. Yeah. Okay.
Right?
So let's go at it. Yeah.
So obviously sleeping is a part of it. I think so.
No, but that's a very, very small part of it.
Correct.
Yeah.
So how do you get to where
So-
you're better at this?
Oh yeah, but there's another problem
Okay.
now. Is the way we've been.
Fuck, there's another
Yeah,
problem.
there's another layer to all this because
Alright.
now you have to look at evolution, right?
Okay.
We have evolved a certain way, so and that we have to deal with it. So evolution gave us like 3 different brains. There's the reptilian brain, and then the limbic brain, and then you go toward the neocortex at the higher brain functions, if you want, right? Right, and so the learning rate has increased over evolution. If you look at reptiles, all reptilian life forms, they don't learn much. Try to teach a crocodile a trick. It goes slow.
Yeah.
Right. Mammals are much better at it. Monkey, you can teach him tricks, and then you go on and on and on. So if you look, the purpose of evolution is more order, is a better learning rate, right? To absorb more information. Absorbing more information means a greater capacity for learning, also means a greater memory card, by the way. But that's the purpose of life, is to learn better and more.
Which also means then if the learning rate is going to be increased, am I correct in saying that like throughout, say that whole spectrum you just described, a creature's ability to experience emotion in any capacity, not just human emotion, but has to increase if you're going to be higher up on that.
Exactly,
on that
right?
order.
Memory card has to increase, the capacity for strong emotion has to increase, the dial has to get better or more efficient, right? So there's an efficiency problem with this also. You look at reptilians, they're cold-blooded,
Yeah.
right? Us, we are hot-blooded, continuously. So the efficiency is much more efficient than us in that sense. But basically, we are harder all the time. We run at a much higher rate. Heat is entropy.
Yeah.
So we also increase the amount of entropy that we produce because we have more information coming in.
That needs to go.
needs to go somewhere. More information means more entropy because nothing is ever lost.
Yeah.
So you can see even on the quantum mechanical level what evolution is trying to do to us. It's making us harder and harder and harder. It's not making us harder, it's making us capable of learning more, which will make us harder.
There's a joke in here about me being so sweaty all the time that makes me smart, but I haven't quite pinned that down yet.
But humans are getting larger, for example.
Yeah.
Right? All animals, as they get stronger, get larger. Then the dinosaurs got wiped out, and now the mammals. But if you look over generations, as we get smarter and more, we start to get taller. And then, so you wonder if that has to do with being able to produce heat. I don't know, I'm just musing right now.
Yeah.
I have no idea, but that'd be interesting to look at it from that perspective. But anyway, so you look at evolution and you look at now let's look at the learning rate, right? It's a dial.
Yeah.
Right. All right. So the lowest part of the dial is the reptilian brain, which is survival, which is a very, very strong instinct, right? And then you keep going up. So the learning rate is based on emotion. The harsher the emotion, right? The more we learn everything. So if we go at evolution, that means anything toward the reptilian brain would be a lower learning rate.
Okay.
Do that make sense so
Makes
far?
sense, yeah.
That's kind of logical,
Yeah.
right? All right,
Yeah.
so what is the oldest part of the nervous system, which is the dorsal vagus nerve, but after that you go toward the sympathetic. We know the sympathetic is older than the mammal's part. So the ventral vagus nerve, all that stuff is much newer than the sympathetic. So the sympathetic belongs more toward even the limbic, which is emotion, everything, but even the reptilian brain.
Okay.
All right, so the reptilian brain gives you something that is a low learning rate. All right, so I start to look at the sympathetic nervous system, and what do I see? I see something fascinating, is that happiness belongs in the sympathetic where joy belongs in the parasympathetic. How do we know? We tested. Anything in the vagus nerve can be tested, so iris dilatation, you have the muscle tone, you have expression of the face. There's about 12 to 15 tests to know if you're in parasympathetic or sympathetic. Outside, for whatever reason, there's some people are OPEX
Who believe that it's impossible.
Then it's impossible to
tell.
test, but that shit has been done for, I don't know,
Yeah,
like
they've been
60
testing
years.
vagal tone for a long time.
For a very long time. But by the way, even on the sympathetic, we know vasoconstriction. We know, I don't know, the list is the list is so long. Hunger is one. I mean, it goes on and on and on, and it's really not that hard to do. Anyway, so you have sympathetic versus parasympathetic. That's the reptilian brain is toward more the sympathetic, obviously. So I look at it and I see that happiness belongs in the sympathetic, whereas joy belongs in the parasympathetic. And I was like, oh, so happiness is older. That's interesting. Then I also looked that in the reptilian brain is where all forms of deceit are conceived.
Makes sense to me.
Survival.
Fundamentally, it's a survival
It's
thing.
a survival
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
So we think
It's a me first survival thing.
we think deceit is a society thing. Actually, no. It's the oldest thing we have because that's how you survive.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they
you
play dead. put your hand-
exactly.
Yeah,
At a basic
exactly.
level,
Yeah.
You gotta pretend you're not what you are, so you can kill something to eat it.
Right.
You gotta hide. That
Exactly.
makes sense a
So,
lot.
but that means that is happiness a form of deceit? So then I started to look at it from a learning rate perspective. When you're happy, you don't learn shit.
Makes sense, yeah.
Right.
Because there's not really would you describe any moment of happiness, if you will, as intense in any way as
no, joy is intense.
As anger, yeah, exactly.
Joy is intense.
Yeah.
But happiness isn't. Happiness is that content feeling.
It's like this
happiness
is
allows you.
contentment.
Yeah, but look at the situation when you're happy. Happiness allows you to be oblivious to the situation you're in. People can be happy in the worst relationships ever, but they're not joyful. They don't find joy in the relationship, but they can be happy. So look at what happiness is. Happiness is a form of contentment that allows you to kill your learning rate. So happiness is a way to kill all strong emotions. It kills your learning rate. That's a reptilian thing. Right? Whereas joy, what's interesting about joy is it's a very strong feeling that never negates the environment around you. You know you have a shitty life. It never does that, but at that moment you feel the joy of it, you feel the intensity of it. You're learning from the situation, and you never, in a moment of joy, you're never blind to the world around you. Whereas when you're happy, you can be completely blind to what's around. So there is no learning in happiness. All the learning happens in joy.
Or
then there's other emotions
or
like
the
that.
other more intense ones.
Or whatever the harshness of the emotion is.
Yeah.
But you could see, so it relates to learning rate and your capacity to absorb information.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
So that's where it is.
Yeah.
Right. So
it becomes like almost. I think it seems if you look at it just a step back, it's like it exists to just kind of lull you into passivity, if you will.
Yeah, because we can't learn. Again, we can't learn everything.
Yeah.
Right? It's not possible. Your
True,
memory,
yeah,
your memory
so
card is finite.
Maybe it's an evolutionary way to say, happy the fuck up, chill out till we make some room, or
Because
until you're ready, or whatever.
How about there is no danger here? We're good. You don't have to learn this to survive. To survive, I don't need this.
Yeah.
So you're going to be happy about this. Because I don't need to make progress on this right now. Let's focus on something else that is more important.
Yeah.
So happiness would be a form of deceit then. So looking for happiness would be the worst thing you can do.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're going to put yourself in a place where your learning rate does not have to increase. So you're literally going to put yourself into a place without strong emotion. So you're literally going to put yourself into depression.
Because you can't, and it's also when we say a harsher emotion, I think that doesn't necessarily mean negative.
No, but
But like
look
with-
at this.
with
Happiness would allow you to go to a place. So look how happiness will lead you to depression. Happiness is a form of deceit, which is a reptilian brain, right?
Mm-hmm.
He would naturally drive you to a less strong emotion, but also it drives where? What is the oldest part of the nervous system? The dorsal vagus nerve,
Yeah.
which is where the polyvagal theory tells us depression lives.
Yeah.
So happiness being old, just like depression is. So happiness drives you to depression. The look for happiness,
The search for it, yeah.
the search for happiness,
Because you're searching
will-
for something that's just a holding pattern then, at that point, right?
even worse, yeah,
Even
a
when you
killing
get
pattern.
there, its
It's a
job
killing pattern.
is to pull
His
you down.
job is to negate your learning rate, is to put your learning rate to zero. The more you look for happiness, the more you are driving yourself into depression.
Yeah.
So that would be the source
so you
of
should
depression.
seek a more intense,
You see,
harsher
seek
form
joy,
of satisfaction.
which is joy.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is joy. Look at joy. Your heart wants to explode.
Yeah.
All that stuff.
Yeah.
So, but
Here's what I think. When I think of joy, I just think of Ric Flair yelling "woo." To me, that's
That
I
works.
walk out the room. That
Right.
defines that for me.
I mean, that does, but that's and that allows you to learn because again, in joy there is no denying of the environment. Where
Yeah.
there is in happiness.
Yeah.
So, depressed people don't feel anything and cannot can have a view of their outside, but that do not they just can't get anything done.
Yeah.
Because why? Because their learning rate is at zero. Because the search for happiness draws them there.
Yeah.
The search for happiness is depression. That is the destination of the journey of happiness is depression.
So what's someone supposed to find, or how do
Joy.
they joy?
Look at
How
training.
does
Okay,
one-
let's take it to.
This
okay,
is I wonder
yeah.
for the average person who's going to be like, all right, what's the difference between joy and
Right,
happiness?
right. So let's talk about let's talk about it from a
yeah,
training
yeah,
perspective, right?
yeah.
You get to the gym and you feel like shit, right?
Yeah.
You have two choices. You can train in a way that's going to allow you to lie to yourself, to deceive yourself into thinking I'm Kai Green or I'm doing. So what you're going to do, you start taking the weights and you start pumping. You feel a little bit of a pump, and now you visualize being Kai Green for
Yeah.
10 minutes. You're
10
training
minutes,
for
no real work.
happiness.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then you look like this, you go like, hey, I'm buff. So now,
Quick selfie.
I'm Kai Green,
Done it.
selfie.
Yeah.
I'm Matt Fraser, I'm whoever. You basically build a movie in your head that gives you hope.
Mm-hmm.
Another form of deceit.
Yeah.
About who you could be one day. No, that 10 minutes you did in the gym is not allowing you to be Matt Fraser. You know what allows you to be Matt Fraser? Real work.
Yeah.
Real
Decade
work.
of real work.
Real work.
Yeah.
But you can basically go to the gym and make you feel better about yourself, which is a sympathetic fix. Remember, we did a podcast about that,
Yeah.
right? So you could go to the gym and go, I need to feel better about myself. I'm going to look for happiness. I'm going to do a bullshit training session, but at least I feel better about myself.
Yeah.
By doing that, you feel happy when you leave. Why? Because your learning rate went to zero.
You
Because you
accomplished
lied.
nothing.
You deceived. You did.
Yeah.
You deceived yourself.
Yeah.
You deceived yourself about where you are. Whereas you get to the gym, you feel like shit, but you put a good day of work. So again, emotions have nothing to do with actions. One has nothing to do with the other. You come to the gym and you feel like shit, does not change whether the work gets done or not. You can put the work in, and I'm not talking just moving the bar. You can still connect the muscle. You can
Yeah.
make the thing work
You can make
better.
the choice to be deliberate
You
about
can
what
take, you can do, instead of enduring, you can actually accomplish something that day. You finish accomplishing, you put in the day of work, you will find joy. Why? Because you know you're one step closer to being Mike Frazier. You're not bullshitting yourself about like, yeah. No, it's like, you know what? I did one more day of work. And usually when you feel joy, you're like, I don't need to be Mike Frazier. I'll be me better. That's the difference.
Yeah.
Because by doing the actual work, right, then you increase your capacity to absorb information. The emotions will be higher. The higher level is joy. Happiness is depression. It's a way of not feeling anything. And that's what you did when you did the workout doing that shit, is you killed all feelings.
Yeah.
Because you didn't like the way you felt about yourself.
Yeah.
So instead of changing it, you found a sympathy. You basically lessen yourself into an older creature who doesn't feel anything.
Ouch, dude. I'm sitting right here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, stop talking to me. But so you could see where the notion of information would move the needle on the whole stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really awesome.
That stuff is fascinating.
So I just want to know, because I believe that I feel what you mean when you say there's a difference between joy and happiness, right? Generally speaking, I'm having a hard time defining it in words.
Happiness is that subdued feeling.
I only keep going to happiness relating more to contentment,
yeah,
and joy relating more to just simply an in the moment in awareness.
So happiness is contentment, like I'm cool where I'm at, right? Whereas joy is proud of the work you just did. Even if the work didn't feel good, you didn't have to.
Yeah.
You're proud of the stuff taking. Like joy is when your heart wants to explode because you see the women of your dream or stuff like that. Like the women of your dream, you're not blind to the fact that you might never date her. You're not blind to the fact that she's still a different person. Like there's still going to be work to be done. Like even if you're in a relationship with that person or stuff like that, it doesn't blind you to the reality of it. There's no contentment in watching the women of your dream walking in front of me. On the contrary, there's the opposite of contentment. You're scared shitless. First time you go on a date with a woman of your dreams, you're scared shitless. You're stressed out. You go like, oh my God, I hope I don't fuck this up. It's the opposite of contentment, and you have the opposite of calm feelings. On the contrary, that's where joy is. Like you're super happy. We say super happy, but you're super joyful. You're going on that date, but it's the opposite of contentment. You're scared shitless. The emotions are running high. When you're happy, it's like yeah, it's cool.
Whereas if you were happy just seeing her walk by once or twice a week when you were having coffee, that ain't never going to help you any.
Exactly. Well, yeah, but then because that's not true joy, because we are never going to act on it.
Yeah.
And so what is the difference? Action.
That makes
joy
sense.
brings action.
Joy brings
happiness brings nothing.
Yeah.
How far are we in this?
We are, I don't know, I'm thinking about 45
That's cool.
minutes. 40 minutes? 45 minutes?
That's cool.
We're good?
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's pretty fucking mind-melting
Exactly.
for you to just
And it's deep
unleash
enough.
on me.
That's okay. I don't want to talk about it more. That's long enough.
Are they playing?
43.
We're good?
Shit, we're
43.
good. Awesome.
Okay. We'll see you guys next week.
Yeah, we'll see you next week. Let
Whatever.
me do the quick stuff. Julien, you look off into space. I'll do the house.
StrongFit 1.
Okay. StrongFit 1 is Julien. I'm Tyler F. and Stone on Instagram. StrongFit.com, StrongFitEquipment.com. That's where you'll find seminars, equipment, sandbags, t-shirts.
Don't care.
Julien'sCorner.com.
Don't care.
Julien doesn't do sales.
Why not? I don't care. I want to go into information more.
I got it. So, all right, guys, thanks a lot for listening, and we'll see you guys next week.